Welcome to the Space Shuttle Podcast. This is episode 10, The Future with Cryptocurrency. Today I have Dan and two very surprised guests with me, Elise and Jeff. We may refer to Jeff as Woody at time to time. It's what we refer to you as in the office. But today, this topic, let's start with this. None of us are financial experts. None of us are crypto experts. So just right off the bat, know that this is a very hypothetical conversation. And everything that we know about cryptocurrency probably came from the internet. So if you're really interested in crypto, do your own research.
Well, the internet in like the deep recesses of our collective minds.
Right. Very opinion-based.
Yes. So quickly, the description. The world was turned upside down when Bitcoin first hit the internet. Folks were, and still probably are, confused on how the currency worked. Now, a few years into cryptocurrency, it seems like new currencies are popping up every day. In this episode, we're chatting about where we see crypto going in the future and what the future might look like. We're not experts, but we sure do love to speculate. So a little bit about Bitcoin. It started in 2009. A lot of the internet resources that I've read are attributing it as like the first cryptocurrency. But there is another currency that started about 20 years earlier in the Netherlands. I don't know the exact name that I guess technically would have been a cryptocurrency. Bitcoin's really the big name and the one that most people probably know about. Where do you want this conversation to go, Dan?
So let's go ahead and start with the mini debate we were having before we even started this conversation about what makes a currency a currency. It used to be that you had gold. Gold was rare, and so that became something that people would trade stuff or services for that thing, whatever that thing is. I think there's a fairly common definition of currency is something that a lot of people use, something that I can use to buy what I want, and something that will hold value into the future, stable value into the future. So people use it, it's common. I can buy stuff or services with it, and it will hold its value into the future. So those are sort of the three big ones. And the question then, Elise and Woody, is does cryptocurrency meet those definitions?
Well, as we were talking, when I was taking a class in current economics, discussion of cryptocurrency actually had come up, and the class's consensus was that it kind of meets two of the three, but it's this holds its value, stable. It especially right now, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And it seems extremely speculative. It wasn't that long ago that, Bitcoin was in the, it was under $10,000 a coin. Was it down around $6 or something?
Yeah.
And then it was up wildly to what, 60 something?
Yeah.
And now I think I saw in the headlines today, it's around 37 and they expect it to drop. Well, that doesn't sound like something you want to use as something that's holding its value. It's not backed by any state, which makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Makes it very interesting.
So I'll play devil's advocate just for a second. Wasn't it a few years ago where the currency in Brazil, I think it was, just turned to crap, and it was like, 10,000, I can't remember the name of the denomination, 10,000 of X to buy like a loaf of bread because the whole thing just turned to shit. Can I say that?
Sure. I'll bleep it out.
Okay. Turn
Definitely
bad. And so even if it's backed by a fairly sizable government, it's still, that third one holds its value. So it's trust.
But that example is a one-time downturn. But the Bitcoin's been all over the place.
But
Yeah.
with Brazil's currency, I think what you're dealing with there is inflation. What do they call that though? When it's like
Hyperinflation.
Hyperinflation. It's really hyperinflation that's driving the currency value down in that country.
And not just randomness of market forces.
Yeah, when you look at Bitcoin, it's not inflation. It's almost like demand for Bitcoin as if it was gold.
Yeah.
Yep. It is definitely a supply and demand game. So
Yeah.
We see that in this coin called Dogecoin, which is
Yes.
tied to Elon Musk. I think everyone probably knows what that is. But when he goes on rants about Dogecoin, it magically starts rising in value. And when he stops talking on Twitter for a little while, it magically starts going down in value.
It's funny you bring up. It's called Dogecoin. Is that
Yes.
how you pronounce
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
I was like, is it Dodge? I don't even know. It's Doge.
Doggy.
That's the
Dog.
first
Doggy.
time I've heard because it was started as a joke, right?
Yes. Yep.
And I thought about this when cryptocurrency was kind of, you had Bitcoin running away, and then you had all these other coins coming along. It's like, well, this is the other thing that befuddles me. What's to keep me from making a cryptocurrency?
Nothing.
Make your own.
Nothing.
Nothing.
There's
So-
Your
I
level
think-
of influence is what
and
matters.
I think somebody had this idea with let's make this is a joke. I'll make a currency, and now suddenly it's a thing.
Well, but it only becomes a currency, and that goes back to the second bullet. I know I can use it to buy what I want. So, Elise, I'll ask you this question. Did you know that Home Depot, Whole Foods, and Starbucks take Bitcoin as payment?
No, I did not. It seems a little ridiculous.
It does, but here's sort of the little secret behind it. They don't actually take it as payment, although I guess they kind of do. They take it, and there's an app that immediately converts it to
So
dollars.
they cash out your Bitcoin.
Like
value.
instantaneously, because they can't have. I don't think well, I'll say I don't think they have an account, and their electronic wallet has Bitcoin in it. They'll take your Bitcoin, convert it to dollars, and put dollars in their account, which I think Jeff goes back to your point, which is holding its value in the future. Corporations, they're happy to take your Bitcoin, but they're going to immediately convert it to something they trust.
That's right.
So yes, you can take, what do you have, 30 or 40 Bitcoin now at 60K per, right?
So much. Really racking
What are you
it
doing
in.
here, Elise?
Well, so
I have 0.
this
Bitcoin.
ties back to the pipeline conversation we had where the ransomware hackers wanted, I think it was like, I don't remember exactly how many Bitcoin, but it came out to be like $40 million. And at the time, I mean, that depends on what the value of Bitcoin was. I think probably that happened in April, which Bitcoin was at its high. So probably like 60K per Bitcoin. I don't know what that comes out to, but I see why the hackers asked for it in Bitcoin because it's not really traceable that way. There's, again, no state tied to it, so there's no real regulations. I will say that recently I heard in the news the pipeline has received like 67% of that $4 million or $40 million, whatever it was, back. I don't know how they received it back, but
Did
apparently
they receive 67% of the value back or 67% of the quantity of Bitcoin?
It sounds like
that they
value.
gave? Okay.
It sounds
I
like
think
value.
I read that.
Yeah.
It was like something like 80 Bitcoin or something they paid in ransom, and then they ended up recovering about 60 Bitcoin of that somehow.
Yeah. I wonder what the value of the Bitcoin, each Bitcoin was when
When
they
they received
gave it versus when they
Versus
got
when
it
they
back because
received
it bounced all over the place.
Yeah, and there's no refunds. It's not like you can just be like, oh, paid
Yeah.
60K for a Bitcoin. Now
You know,
I want it back.
That's the other interesting thing about where is this going? You know, whenever new technology comes along, it can be used for good, but then you always have the evil, bad people of the world that find out how to use it for nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
And that's what they're using Bitcoin for. I think that's really what it's being used for. It's being used for in the black, dark market. It's basically money laundering. It's untraceable money laundering.
If we could get someone with influence to state that, maybe the value would drop and it would go away.
Or it would go up because people like bad things.
So we keep saying it's
Perhaps.
untraceable. Jeff, do you know enough about blockchain to explain? No? Okay.
I
Me neither.
no, I
Again,
don't.
this whole thing's based off of something called a blockchain. If you're interested in that, do your own research because, again, we're not experts in this.
Right. Usually we all are pretty good at catching on to stuff. I don't know. That one's pretty hard.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll overview blockchains like this dispersed network of computer systems where they're tracking Bitcoin and you can make different records, but the records can't be changed. They can only be updated. There's this whole thing.
There's a whole network trust part of it
Mm-hmm.
that's involved too, which again, I don't understand.
And
Right.
yet here we are still using fax machines.
Yes.
Well, and then the other thing about, you got to mine this cryptocurrency.
Yes.
That's another thing you hear about. What is that?
So that's an option. You don't have to, but it is an option.
You can buy it from other miners.
Basically, the mining is solving these very complex mathematical problems. If you solve this problem, it somehow benefits whoever put it out there, and you receive a reward in
I
Bitcoin
feel like you
back.
could do that. I feel like you could be a miner.
No, I've read about it. I mean,
Well-
it takes extreme computing power.
Exactly.
And it's funny when I read it, I was like, well, okay, I'm not gonna. This may be a dangerous area to go to, but like, where are the environmentalists? Because just think of the electricity and the resources that are being used to power all these computers around the world just to mine Bitcoin. I've read about warehouses
Yep.
Yeah.
that people take over and just bring in, and they're just sucking electricity to do this. I'm like, there's no, where's the environmental gain there?
Right. Now, I'll pile on that point, Jeff, in that because it takes so much power, at some point the economics flip,
Right.
and it's no longer of value
To mine Bitcoin, yep.
So what people are doing is stealing the power. So therefore, you don't have to pay for it. So what do you think about that,
This
Elise?
just
About
gets more
stealing
and more
power?
evil. Like every angle we go down, it's negative and kind of an evil thing.
And I think the predominant mining operation, I mean, it's ridiculous. Computer problem-solving operations are in China and Iran. And both of those countries have started to clamp down on this because for the exact reasons that you guys say, is it's sucking so much power off the grid, it's actually having, metaphorically lights dim in other places because of this.
I think China's actually one of the countries that they've made it illegal to purchase things with any sort of cryptocurrency.
Seems like a
I don't
step
think
in the
that
right
means you
direction.
can't like have cryptocurrency or can't invest in it, whatever, or mine it, but you can't actually purchase anything with cryptocurrency.
Even at the China Starbucks.
Right.
That's a good question. And look, I also don't even understand how I would have how I would have Bitcoin in my electronic wallet, where I walk up, like let's just say that I used my iPhone to pay for my Starbucks normally, and it would just magically suck, $4 or whatever it is out of my account. I guess it would take one fraction of a Bitcoin out of my Bitcoin wallet if I chose to pay with Bitcoin, which again makes my head hurt. I don't.
One other thing about cryptocurrencies that may potentially make it a disruptor in the marketplace is transaction fees, because I think I've read about that as well. Like you take a Visa, a credit card, there's a transaction fee
Like
associated
2 to
with
3%
that.
typically.
That's making Visa, MasterCard, and the other card companies.
What-
That's how they get their revenue, and they make a ton of money doing
Right.
that.
What's in your wallet?
Exactly. Whereas cryptocurrencies are meant to just bypass all of that. And so is that a potential disruptor in the future? Maybe it's not quite Bitcoin or whatever it is, but if people could now carry out electronic credit card type transactions, I guess, but bypass the entire fee structure, that's kind of attractive.
It
You're
is.
giving me this quizzical look.
I am, because here's
you don't know what I'm talking
No,
about.
I understand what you're saying, Jeff. Here's what I don't understand. I'm shallow. People only do things so they can earn money.
Right.
So how is that marketplace that you just described of the, I'll call it frictionless interchange of wealth in of cryptocurrency, how are the interchangers making money? Because that's the only reason they're doing it. I have this conversation with my kids. You have Venmo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does Venmo make money?
So I'll tell you how they make money. First of all, they have a credit card system where you get a physical card, you can use your Venmo account. So I'm sure there's some sort of transaction fee with that.
Okay, but that's old-fashioned way of making money.
Second, you can, when you're transferring money from Venmo to your bank account, you can do an instant transfer, which is like up to 10% of whatever you're transferring, or you can do a 1 to 3 day business day transfer, which is free. So if you're somebody that needs that money right away and you take that instant transfer option,
Human
they're making a
nature.
percent.
Profiting off the desperate.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Profiting off
I'll
the
tell you
desperate.
what.
I love that term.
I think next year for 2022 Girl Scout cookie season, we're only going to take cash and Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah.
Excellent. That's a good plan.
No transaction fees,
Yes.
so we're in.
You just have to make sure that the season lines up with the low point of Bitcoin, and then a few months later you'll have profit.
I'm
Okay,
gonna go to the
check back in with
I'm
you.
gonna go to the local arcade and get the little gold tokens and pretend that they're Bitcoin and hand them to you and see if you'll take them and see these. You know what?
Yeah.
To like a
My
9-year-old
6-year-old
girl,
will definitely take
yes,
them.
here's a Bitcoin.
This is a question. You always see the pictures of a Bitcoin that they put. Are those real? Do those
No.
really exist? I didn't
No,
think so.
no.
Yeah,
It's numbers on your screen. That's it. So Ian, do you know, or Elise or Jeff, do you guys know if when you solve the equation and you are awarded a Bitcoin from the awarders of Bitcoin, whoever they are, right? Does your account go from like 2 to 3? I mean, how does that work?
I think when you're solving those problems, I think it's fractional Bitcoins is what you're getting.
Yeah, and that's why
Okay.
these mining farms are so big. So obviously, the more graphical power you have, well, okay, first of all, these mining farms are made up of computer parts that are graphics cards. Whole different conversation, but cryptocurrency mining has caused the demand for graphics cards to go through the roof. You can't get a graphics card unless you like know somebody or put yourself on like a waiting list, basically. So these mining farms are made up of these graphics cards. The computer over here has one, but the more graphics cards you have, the faster you can solve these problems. That's where these mega farms come into play that are sucking up all this energy. I forget where I was going with this point, but I guess I don't know. What was the initial thought that I was thinking of? I can't remember
Whether or not like your digital wallet goes from 3 to 4.
Oh, right.
And we talked about fractional
So
Bitcoins.
I think it's going to depend on how many problems you're solving, and that is going to depend on how big your mining farm is.
My other understanding with these cryptocurrencies is there's a limited, like Bitcoin
Yes,
has
has
a
a
maximum
cap, yeah.
amount. And the closer you get to that maximum, that last Bitcoin, the harder these problems become to solve.
Okay.
And
So
I'm
I'll-
like, okay, so what happens? I don't know how many Bitcoins are. Let's just say it's a million Bitcoin is the maximum. What happens when that millionth Bitcoin is mined? And now there's no more supply to be given or be created like a normal currency. You can create,
print more money.
print more
We do it every
money,
day.
and I mean, the Federal Reserve does it every day.
Right.
So what happens?
So I think,
I
Jeff,
don't know.
that's the point of the cryptocurrency fans, is that if I know that there's a finite amount, I know, back to this third bullet, that it will hold its value because they're not just going to print more.
Or the value goes up. So
Or the
I
value goes
imagine
up.
when we get to that point where we're 1 Bitcoin away from being maxed out, the value of it's going to be towards that 60K
Provided
plus
you can still
number.
buy stuff with it. Because if you can't buy stuff with it, then it's just, meh.
So, okay, so we keep talking about this, and it was one of my points, and we have been talking about it, virtual payments. I was on my way back from South Carolina. We stopped at this like middle of nowhere gas station. They had a machine that you could, I assume, I didn't look at it, I should have, assume buy and sell Bitcoin at. So it was like, again, didn't look at it, but in my mind, it's like probably an ATM machine where
Whoa, back, you can't call it ATM machine. Right, Elise?
ATM or AT machine.
Right, sorry.
Got the whole lecture earlier this week.
The banking machine that was in the corner. But I thought that was interesting. And back to the whole wallet thing. So yes, they
Why does that sound like extra shady to me? Because it happened in
Definitely
South
shady.
Carolina.
At a gas station.
at a
gas
gas
station.
station.
Nothing good.
The other wallet conversation. So yes, there's applications on your phone that are these virtual wallets. They also make physical devices, I guess, that hold your wallet. So maybe that tertiary item that comes out of a Bitcoin and how people are making money off of it is they're selling these physical virtual wallets.
It all hurts my head.
So there's always been this question in my head. This will never happen, but say it does. The government moves to a Bitcoin model and starts paying its customers or its, what are we?
People.
Contractors, people in Bitcoin. How's that work? Do you see it working?
No, because the Bitcoin isn't stable.
Let's say it
Is it
stables out.
Okay. I mean,
Let's say, okay, more on the hypothetical. Let's say we've reached the max. There's no more Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is always going to be the set value.
So but here's the part we get into a rapidly circular argument. The Bitcoin's value is set by
demand.
another currency.
Yeah.
It's set by dollars because dollars are, at least today, the standard. If it ever flip-flops and you say, well, these American pieces of paper are worth X number of Bitcoin, well, then maybe Bitcoin will gain some traction. But until Bitcoin is still referenced back to dollars or a pound, if you're in Europe, right? Not a pound, sorry, a euro.
Yeah.
Well, let's take that real quick tangent. We recently invented a currency. It's called the euro.
Right.
When did that happen? 20 years ago? Maybe?
Yeah, probably
within my
about
lifetime.
Right. Somebody
about-
snapped their fingers and said, new currency, it's called the euro. And it's really not too much different than somebody inventing Bitcoin, except for the fact that it's backed up by the collection of governments. But there's no gold or diamonds or some other perception of something rare behind it. They just said, these new pieces of paper,
Now have
they're
value.
called euros, and they now have value, and you can give one of these, and we will give you 1 gallon of gasoline to power your car. And magically, people went, okay, and they did it.
Well, I mean, I guess at that point we're really talking about. I mean, it's a
New
monetary
currency,
system.
yeah.
It's
It's a monetary system that the European Union and everything, But like you said, it's Euro has. They don't call it the Federal Reserve in Europe. I don't know what they call it, but that's how that money supply it gets controlled.
It's managed.
It's managed monetarily, much like the Federal Reserve
But
will
they-
manage the number of dollars in,
Right.
in the economy.
But they invented it out of thin air. There was nothing, and then there was something, and that something was called the euro, and it was declared to be valuable. We declare this to be valuable.
It's suddenly, your three definitions of a currency. It was given those three because it was backed
by
a state.
states in this case.
It's no
Yeah.
different than Zimbabwe and their Zimbabwe
Right.
dollars,
Right.
or Brazil and whatever they call it. It's backed by a government.
It's called
So-
the Brazilian real, is what it's called.
Okay.
So I suppose if we could pay our employees in Bitcoin and they could purchase
Ooh.
their goods in Bitcoin,
Now,
then
Bitcoin,
we could take payment in Bitcoin.
I could be wrong by
Yeah.
saying this, but I don't know that Bitcoin's taxable. Does that save the company money if we start
if the government is going to pay us in Bitcoin, they're going to tax the Bitcoin.
Well, they'll get one of the apps that Home Depot has, and they'll instantly convert it to dollars.
Well,
and boom, there are your taxes.
isn't that now a question? I seem to recall this on your tax return.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there something on there about do you have any Bitcoin?
Or did you earn from Bitcoin?
Government's
Yeah,
going to get
something
their
like
piece.
that.
Yeah. So governments they're starting
collecting
to
data.
play
Right.
catch up here, because again, nefarious. Because that's a kind of a
Yeah, you can hide
nefarious
money.
idea
You can
there,
hide your
Ian.
money.
Of
Yeah.
if we can start paying people in Bitcoin, the company will not pay taxes anymore. Well,
Yeah, not so
the government.
fast.
That's not gonna happen
let's
for
say,
very long.
Let's say we're a company that has some sort of system that converts Bitcoin to dollars. We pay our employees in Bitcoin, but then it immediately gets converted to dollars with our own software. Still not taxable? I don't know.
You know what? Make that argument as you head to federal prison.
Hasn't the SEC? I mean, I seem to recall that Bitcoin. It's they're basically treating it as an asset, and you got capital gains. It's like an investment, really,
Right.
and it's a very speculative investment at this time. I'm sure cryptocurrency people would vehemently argue with
Yes.
that, and the future may prove them right.
Right. Or
It
not.
could. Or not.
Or not.
As I kind of talked about before we really started talking, It's the blockchain technology that I think is so fascinating because that has other applications, I believe.
Yeah.
And that blockchain technology, could that be used to current monetary systems to protect counterfeiting potentially?
Use it for good.
Use it for good as opposed to for bad. Maybe there's something there.
You could make like a 2-beer philosophical argument that we use cryptocurrency today in U.S. dollars because we never actually get dollars. We never actually pay dollars. We get an electronic transfer of electrons that end up in Avian's bank account from our customers, and then we electronically transfer electrons to other our employees' bank accounts. And those people are able to take those electrons and buy bread and milk at the store.
I still use dollars.
Do you?
For yard sales.
Okay.
Well, that goes to like.
But now we have Venmo. You don't even need that.
It goes to like
hasn't caught on for yard
a
sales.
larger monetary supply in a whole economic system. I mean, how many real physical currency is in circulation in the United States or around the world?
Right.
Not many.
It is a fraction of the actual value of transactions occurring.
That's true.
It's a fraction.
So this. Go ahead.
So therein lies the main argument of the cryptocurrency people, that we already actually have cryptocurrency, and it's called dollars and euros and pounds and pesos and other, because a very, like you said, Jeff, a very small percent are actually tangible dollars, except for Elise when she goes to yard sales and buys
And Tooth
stuff.
Fairy money.
Tooth Fairy money is very important too.
Yeah.
So does Bitcoin eventually become a global currency managed by some international banking consortium?
Wow, you just like went 500 years in the future.
Well, so
Is that where this
I was
eventually goes?
kind of heading that way and going to ask you guys what you think the future of paper money is. And I think we're running down this path of
Paper money's on its way out.
No, I'm sorry. I'm still using it.
Right. Look,
It's not very much, but I've got it.
There's some chance I might go to a casino this weekend, so I got a couple of these in my wallet.
Oh.
These
I mean,
are the
just use a
important
Bitcoin out of the
Benjamins.
casino, right?
Can you?
No, but
Okay. Yeah, you know what
maybe
they want?
someday.
They want dollar bills only.
Yeah.
True. That sounds nefarious as well.
Yes.
But I mean, we're moving away, even at toll booths now, because of the pandemic,
Yeah.
they moved to video tolls.
Yeah.
The only reason I carried money with me when I was traveling was because
Tolls?
of
Yeah.
tolls. So I don't know,
They
future
have
of paper
Easy
money,
Pass, yeah.
maybe it is this global currency that now,
If we can get Venmo at yard sales, the dollar's gone.
I mean,
It's like the last fortress.
let's
of
straighten this
cash.
out. We can get Venmo. It's just about adopting
If we can
Venmo.
get it to be adopted.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I'm going
that's
to try that this weekend. I'm going to put up my Venmo account number at my yard sale,
Yes.
like my Venmo handle or whatever.
maybe people will just send you money, like driving by. Oh, there's a Venmo account. Have you seen? So there's a trend. People go on these bachelorette parties now and post a social media post saying that they're going on this party. Venmo them $1, $5, whatever, and
It's a fundraising tool.
people are making money to basically fund their drinking habits during their bachelor and bachelorette parties.
I mean, you can donate to whatever you want to donate to.
Exactly. If you want my Venmo, I will gladly give it to you. Just don't request money from me. Only send money to me.
Are we done?
We are done.
All right, good.
On the next episode, we're talking about non-fungible tokens. So piggybacking a little bit off of this conversation, we're going to talk about what NFTs are, and I'm bringing in one of our creative people who may have some stake in this and seeing what her thoughts are about selling digital art online for cryptocurrency. Until then, we'll see everybody next time. Dan, Elise, Woody, thanks for joining me and Dan. And that's it.
Thanks so much, Ian.
Thanks.
Hey, Space Shovel watchers, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you have an extra second, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Stay up to date on the Work Awesome Network on everything that's going on. If you want to learn more about the company behind the Work Awesome Network and behind the Space Shovel podcast, jump over to avian.com, avian.com, to learn about the company, to learn about the work that we do, and just to get a little bit more background information on the type of company that we are. Again, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you want to stay up to date on everything going on in the Work Awesome Network, please jump over to any social media site that you consume content on: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're basically on all of them under Work Awesome Network. That's the place to get the latest updates, the latest blog posts, the latest information on everything going on Work Awesome related. Now back to this episode.